Champions Cup had the first round of knockout games at the weekend, and the contenders starting to make their moves. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Round of 16 is done, and we didn't have a whole lot of shocks. We had some decent games out of it. I'm not going to spend too long on any of the games because I covered 7 of the 8 games over the weekend. Lucky enough to watch them live because I had the weekend off, and I also got to cover one of the Challenge Cup games as well. So 8 live games of rugby for me to cover was I was in heaven like a pig in muck this weekend gone. Unfortunately, for the quarterfinals, they're going to be working, so I won't get to cover as many games, certainly not live, but we will have a video like this covering the at least the results anyway. But as I said, we're going to go down through each of them, and we start with the game on Friday night. That was Harlequins 28, Glasgow Warriors 24. So Warriors get a great start. Scott Cummings going over early on for them, but then a decent reply from Harlequins. I thought, when they got the chance to attack, looked really sharp. They got, first of all, Esther Hazen over, then Marcus Smith over himself as well. And, then just before halftime as well, they get over through Caden Murley, and 21-7 at halftime looked, a fairly comfortable lead for them. Fair play to Warriors, though. They worked their way back in it in that second half. Johnny Matthews getting over for what is almost like a customary try for him. Then George Horn getting over as well there. Then Horn adds a penalty, and Glasgow are now winning just as we're going into the final quarter. But this is what happens a lot of teams as well, who generally don't go too far into knockout stages. They don't score any points in the last quarter, and in a game like this, you've got to have that threat, whether it's a penalty or getting over for a try. You've got to be on the front foot and looking for more points. You can't be trying to defend for the last 20 minutes, and it didn't work out for them. So even with 5 minutes to go, they're still winning, but Quins have the momentum, and then Sam Riley gets over. Smith converts it, which meant that Glasgow then needed to go for a try at the end, and they just weren't able to do it. And Quins kind of held them out at the end there. Quins deservedly through to a quarterfinal. I think it's the first knockout game that Quins have won in this competition as well. But looking at these two teams, neither have huge pedigree in this competition. So for either team getting to the quarterfinal would have been a big step for them anyway. But Quins, the ones that held the nerve. Glasgow, as I said, when it comes to knockout rugby, there's something missing there, and it feels like it's like a mental side of things as well, because they have the quality there to certainly say that when they do get to knockout games, they should be winning, maybe I would say 30-40% of their knockout games at least they should be winning, but they're not doing that. So they've obviously got work to do on that side. But Quins going into that quarter final, I don't know how much further in the competition they will go though. Next then we have the Bulls 59, Lyon 19. So a big win for the Bulls. They started really well too. They get the Clerc over, then Papier with a nice try as well. Marcel Kutze gets himself over too, and really good start from them. Then Leon reply, and I think it was Paige Relo goes over to score for them. And I'm trying to remember when they definitely got a penalty try. I'm trying to remember when they got the penalty try. Oh, it was in the second half, right? Yeah. So halftime score, actually Bulls getting another, Vermaat goes over as well, before the break. So Bulls 28-7 up at halftime. You're thinking the game's pretty much over. And then when we get into the second half, then penalty try for Lyon sparks, a possibility of a comeback from them at 28-14. But then the Bulls just press Exeter again. Willie Leroux over Papier for his second try as well. We do have Abrams going over for Lyon for an unconverted try, but at that stage, the game's already done, and then Bulls add extra scores through Creel. Thought he had a really great game. Smith goes over, and then de Klerk goes over for his second as well to kind of bookend the scoring for them. So excellent performance by the Bulls. Bit disappointed, honestly, with the crowd that was there. I know a lot of people said it's the time of day because this was like the middle of the summer and it's on like midday or whatever, or early afternoon. So not the best time to be, like an evening kickoff would have made a lot more sense for this game. But still it's a big game. Their last, as it turns out, last home game as well that they could have in this competition this year as well. So, and then I think it's a huge achievement as well for the Bulls to make it into the quarterfinal. It's a step further than they went last year. And now anything after this is just gravy, right? So well done to them. Lyon, I think they did well kind of stepping up from the Challenge Cup level where, they were either, trying to remember if they were winners. They were winners either last year or the year before at that level, but that feels like their level anyway. But to get out of their pool, I think they did really well. Started the pool well and then got themselves out of it, but still work to do for them, I think, to progress in knockout stages and even to be consistently getting out of their pool as well. Next game then, Stormers 21, La Rochelle 22. This an amazing game, really enjoyed it. So Stormers with a great start. Lebock puts over a couple of penalties first as Stormers are applying pressure. Then Yanchis gets over as well for a try, and they've got a decent lead at halftime then, leading 13-0, but you feel, against La Rochelle, we saw it against, a team like Leinster as well, that they're never beaten. You have to keep pulling away. You have to keep scoring those points because they're going to come back and they're going to score. In this type of game, your target is somewhere in the high 20s to the low 30s in a game like this. It's always the way it kind of is, right? That it's going to end up with the winner scoring somewhere between like 24 or around 20 odd points to 30 odd points, and you've got to try and put yourself there. So the Stormers knew that La Rochelle were going to come back and they needed to produce in that second half. They didn't quite make it. Second half we saw La Rochelle stepping up a little bit. Panvere, he gets over for a try for them. Then we have Gregory Aldrit gets over as well. And that was just after Thunison got a yellow card as well. So and in that yellow card period, La Rochelle actually got over twice. They got the Aldrit one and then Sclavy over as well. And we have like Astoy converts then to he converted the first one, right? Missed the conversion on the second one, which then gives the Stormers at least a chance to come back at them from there. It's like, what was it, 22 points to they got a penalty, right? Yeah. Stormers got a penalty early in the half, actually. So they were 16-0 up. But at this point, it's 22 points to 16. So Stormers still know that compared to try, and they could take this one. And they come forward looking for it. They manage to get over through Harsenberg, and it was like a crossfield kick for him to score in the right corner. But I thought that La Rochelle's defence, they did really well to make it so that Stormers couldn't score close to the post where, you know, the conversion could have been a gimme. So instead then we end up with Lebock kicking the conversion, trying to win the game. It doesn't go over and La Rochelle go through, but great effort from the Stormers. And, you know, even though they go out at the round of 16, they beat La Rochelle in the pool stages. They gave them a game here. They almost beat them, and they're showing that they have, you know, what it takes really to rise up to the level to be, you know, making quarterfinals, semi-finals, etc. And, you know, at some point maybe getting their hands on the trophy as well. So I think for the South Africans, you know, the two teams that were in the round of 16, Bulls going through, Stormers doing really well. It's good signs for South African rugby, I think, in the Champions Cup. La Rochelle then just shows that why they're, you know, back-to-back champions, that they find a way to win, and they did it in this game as well. Okay, on to the next one then. Exeter Chiefs 21, Bath 15. So this is the one game that I didn't get to watch live. So, you know, starting off, first kind of quarter, both teams nip and tuck, but no real, you know, nothing really on the scoreboard. Then just as it ends, Thomas du Toit goes over for Bath, and then it's one of these ones where you score and then you switch off. Vincent goes over for Exeter pretty much, you know, off the restart, and Slade converts that one, and now Exeter are ahead. But Bath, you know, they keep on coming. They don't, you know, heads don't go down. They get Ted Hill over. Spencer converts that one, and now they're leading, and they keep that lead until halftime, 12-7. Into the second half, then Ben Spencer pops over a penalty to kind of stretch that lead for them. But again, it's another one of these ones where, you know, for the 48 minute, it being the last time you score in the game, you can't expect to go on and win the game then. You know, you can't defend for 30 odd minutes with such a narrow lead and expect to go through at this level. And that's what happened to them really was, you know, pressure comes on for Exeter to get Fisilau over, and then 15 minutes to go, then Roots over as well, and they have the lead then, and then Bath just can't muster that response to get themselves, you know, back ahead. And Exeter, you know, last year they made it to the semi-final just through sheer doggedness, really. You know, that they almost went out at this stage, I think it was, right, against, was it Montpellier, I think, and they went to like extra time, basically scored in the last minute to force it to go to extra time. Then we're losing in extra time, and then scored to win that as well. And then, you know, come over some difficult teams as well to get into that semi-final. And then we thought the team, they have to rebuild their squad now. So we were thinking, you know, are they even going to get out of the pool stages, having to rebuild with so many players leaving? But yeah, they did, and now they're into the quarterfinals, and, you know, with a realistic chance as well of getting on, you know, back into the semi-finals again for a second year in a row. I know a lot of teams will kind of dismiss them as a team that could win the title, but if they can get to the semi-final, I think all bets are off then. But for now, decent from them getting, you know, to the quarterfinals. Bath, another one of those teams where they've definitely improved, because, like, you know, Bath, you know, in the last few seasons weren't necessarily even qualifying for Champions Cup, and certainly weren't getting out of the pool stages. So they're kind of earlier in their journey in terms of performing in the Champions Cup. I know they have a history from long ago now, back when I was a kid, or at least younger, of being a powerhouse in Europe, but that's a long time ago. We're talking the 1990s at that stage. But you can see there that there is a kernel that they can build on and potentially get themselves involved. And we've seen it with teams in European competitions, that it's about consistently getting into pool stages, and then you build on that. So the aim for them, I think, next year is qualify, obviously, and then get out of the pool, and then just try and build on that to kind of create a buzz and a tradition around Europe. There. Next, then we have Bordeaux Begley 45, Saracens 12. So Saracens, they were a huge team in this competition, and they're a team that now you look at their squad and you think they absolutely have to rebuild in terms of being competitive at the sharp end in Europe. It's probably still a decent squad for the Premiership, but when you come to Champions Cup, you need a little bit more. And the squad that they have, they used to be able to give them that. They can't really do that consistently anymore. And it wasn't even like for most of the game, wasn't really even close. Saracens did, I think, do pretty well to prevent Bordeaux from getting over until close to half time. It was 3-0. I think it was 0-0 for the first almost 30 minutes. Then a penalty. Bordeaux get themselves ahead. Itoje then gets a yellow card. I think that was for a deliberate knock on, right? It was, I can't remember. I think it was though. Then straight away, Bordeaux get Garcia over, and they're in the lead then, 10-0 at half time. In the second half, then Garcia over again early in the half. And then they just start, really getting those backs going. The Port there gets over. Bielbiaoui, who I thought had an excellent game, goes over for the first of his two. The Port there over for his second one then. Then finally Saracens get Lewington over. Nice little cameo for him, getting himself a try. And then Bielbiaoui with his second. And at this stage the game was already well gone. Saracens get a consolation try through Willis at the end there, but well beaten. And Bordeaux, they were surprised in the pool stages, but I think nobody's surprised about this result now, that they hockeyed Saracens in the pool stages. What was it, 55-15 or something then? So similar margin, not quite as big a margin this time, but still very impressive from Bordeaux. And again, another one of those teams that maybe you don't think about considering them as a serious threat for the title, but I think of the teams who don't have a tradition of going deep into this competition, they look the best of those teams. And the thing is that any team that has never won this competition, they've and then they go on to win it, it's always the same, right? That people don't think they're going to be able to do it because there's other teams that have been there and done that. But there's got to be a point where a team does win their first one, and then suddenly people start taking them a little more seriously. And who's to say that it won't be Bordeaux's year this year? Next, then we have Leinster 36, Tigers 22. So we have like Pollard going over really early for Leicester, and maybe you think Leinster might be wobbled a little bit by that, but they kind of stuck to the task. Byrne pops over a penalty to reduce the deficit. Jameson Gibson Park then just says listen, this is my show. Scores a hat-trick in like 17 minutes, and some just really good play from him that started moves or kept moves going, and then he was there to support people that had made breaks and then to finish off. So really nice hat-trick from him. And Leinster fully in control, 22-10 up at half time. Into the second half, then Cronin responds for Leicester and gets them a little bit closer. But again, Leinster able to go again. Robbie Henshaw with a nice intercept. When Leicester were at that point where they had an overlap out on the right, and if the ball had gone to hand, they may not have got in, but certainly there was a threat to that Leinster line, and the game could have gone completely differently. But Henshaw, with a brilliant read, comes out of the line, gets into the passing channel, intercepts, and nobody's catching him. He's in under the posts, and from there, Leinster don't really look back. Towards the end, then we have Jack Conan gets a try that pretty much ends any chance of a Leicester comeback. Leicester do get Clare over though to make it a bit closer on the scoreboard in the end. But Leinster not looking amazing, but it's a round of 16 game. You've got to win it and then get on to your quarter final. And if you do have stuff to improve on, then okay, fine. They've got a week now to improve on that, and we know they can play better than they did. But at the same time, we can't criticize them too much in terms of like they've still won by 14 points. And other than that point where Henshaw gets the intercept and gets to try to pretty much kills the game off, they weren't really under that much pressure from Leicester. It wasn't like it was a huge kind of back and forth thing, and then Leinster just looked into a win. They've looked in control for most of the game. Yes, they could have been a little more clinical and scored some more points, but it's a lot of stuff that's very fixable, I think. And I think a game like this before going into that quarterfinal against La Rochelle is going to be good for them, because it means they're going to, there's the areas that they at times struggled with against Leicester is what La Rochelle are going to bring as well. So they're going to be working on that even more during the week, and hopefully they're going to be well prepared for that quarterfinal. So, so in terms of Leicester, though, you can see that they're still kind of in that limbo. I feel like that they're good enough to get the pool stages, but they're not good enough really to be a threat to lift the title. So, some improvement needed from them. But again, it's just about building that experience, because, they do have young guys in their team, and those guys now are getting to play Champions Cup knockout rugby every season, and that's got to be good for them, I think, in the long run. Next, then, we have Northampton 24, Munster 14. So Munster, we saw like with the reports, got a long injury list. They had a illness in their camp as well. So, the performance they put in, I thought was great given all of that. First of all, Saints get over through Ram early on. I thought it was a really well worked try there. Then reply from Munster, pretty good too. Sean O'Brien getting over for them. Then we have another really well worked try from Saints to just kind of, Mike Haley goes over first, right, for Munster. And Munster are winning 14-7, and you're thinking, well, Munster could actually do this. But there is the thing of, like, Munster have fallen away a lot in games this year. And then the fact that the guys have an illness in the camp as well. You're already thinking that how are their legs going to be, like, how their lungs going to be when they get into that second half. But, Saints just before halftime, they get Freeman over, another really well worked try there. Munster's tries when they got them as well, I have to say, just showed as well the cutting edge that they have too. I felt like they didn't create enough chances in this game for it. But halftime then was 14-all, so it's all to play for in the second half. And then young George Hendy comes off the bench, and he just decides he's going to win the game for the Saints. First try was nice from him. Second try though was super impressive. I think it was like, first of all, step Zebo on the outside and then beat somebody else to get over into the corner as well. Just amazing finish for a young guy, and sent them through. Munster, again, they had the illness, etc. But I still feel that this Munster team are, a season or two away from really being competitive, at this level. Yes, they could have got into a quarter-final. I don't think they would have got much further, though, honestly. But, there is a lot of young talent in that Munster squad coming through. Some of them are injured at the moment. So they need to get game time into those guys and have them ready for, whether it's next season or the season after. But it feels like Munster are definitely on the rise again in European competition. So, the rest of Europe is going to have to sit up and take notice. But Saints are another team who, rising back up. Like, basically, these two teams in, the kind of mid 2000s, or mid noughties, as it were huge rivals, and both with serious ambitions of winning the titles, and also really good chances of doing it year on year as well. And now we can see both of them rising up. Saints, I think, are in a similar position to Munster in that I'm not sure that they are at a level at the moment to seriously threaten for the title. But again, you just have to win one quarter final, and then anyone that gets into a semi-final has, as I say in boxing, a puncher's chance of going on and winning the title. Okay, so the last one of the round then, a team who have won this so many times and don't need a puncher's chance, is Toulouse. So 31-7 for them against Racing, and it was really easy for them, honestly. Maubaka over after 5 minutes. Then they're still in control. We're not really seeing all that much from Racing coming forward, and then Lebel goes over to make it 10-0. No conversions in the first half, but even at 10-0, it felt like Stade have won this. Racing are going to really struggle to come back into it. Second half then, Costas goes over, Peter Aki over as well. He had a great game. His tackle on Khaleesi to prevent a breakaway try was really good, right in the corner. I think Khaleesi had to go off after that as well, so hopefully he is okay and he's able to come back. Then when Ben Arous goes over for Racing, it's already just a consolation try. That nothing's going to happen with 5 minutes to go. And then Roma goes over just to make sure that Toulouse have the last word as well. So, bit of procession for them into their quarterfinal. And it's a strange one, right? And it's always kind of hindsight that we look back at these ones. And if Toulouse go on and they lose the quarterfinal, then it's because they weren't really tested by Racing, and therefore they weren't up to the level that they should be. But then if they go on and win, then it's because they had an easy ride and they're able to take players off and protect them and blah blah blah, right? So it's all kind of, I don't necessarily take that kind of thing into consideration, because it's always mentioned after, whatever happens in next game. So it's kind of pinch of salt stuff for me, really. But those are the results from the round of 16, which means we can have a quick look at the quarterfinal matchups, because we will be we will be doing a preview of those. So let me pull them up here. So first quarterfinal is on Saturday, and it's a 3:00 kickoff. It's Bordeaux versus Harlequins. So again, we saw in the Quins game as well, we saw kind of Quins against Glasgow, two teams who had no real pedigree in European rugby. Glasgow previously had, but I'm talking about the current Glasgow squad. And now we have another matchup like that. So one of these two teams is going to get into a semi-final, and that's potentially going to be the launching pad for them to get in, get up into that kind of tier where the year on year they're serious contenders for the title. Next quarterfinal, then two teams who are year on year contenders. The finalists from the last two seasons, Leinster versus La Rochelle. La Rochelle obviously have the wood over Leinster, and Leinster really have to be thinking what do they have to do to beat La Rochelle at this stage, right? So this feels like for Leinster a real kind of watershed moment, that if they lose against La Rochelle again, what has to change in Leinster for them to get out of that, whereas if La Rochelle go on and they win that, then they must feel that 3 in a row is absolutely on, and that their name is almost on the trophy. So that's going to be a huge matchup for me. Obviously, as a Leinster fan, it's the game I'm going to be most interested in, but I do think it is the matchup of the weekend as well. And I think, when you're looking at that, there were finalists, both the finalists last year and the finalists the year before as well, it's hard really to argue against that. Next one then is Northampton versus the Bulls. So again, it's two squads who, the current squads at least, haven't got that experience of going deep into this competition, but one of them is going to get to a semi-final. Saints, they saw off Munster. Bulls with a really impressive win against Lyon, but now they've got to travel up from South Africa, and I'm already hearing stories of not even all the squad are going to travel together, and they won't all see each other until late in the week, and it's just not great preparation for for a huge game. In terms of the Bulls, since they joined the URC, for my money, this is the biggest game that they've been in. I know they were in a final of the URC, but I'm not sure that for a lot of South African fans yet that it's sunk in just quite the importance of the European games, especially the Champions Cup, compared to the domestic leagues. That honestly, I think a quarterfinal of a Champions Cup for me would rank higher than a final of any of the domestic leagues. Winning the trophy is a different thing. Being the champions would obviously be a step above that. But I put that kind of on par of being kind of semi-finalists in the Champions Cup. But then the Champions Cup is, final or champions is a little bit step above that. So it's a huge game for the Bulls. A big game for Northampton as well, because again, they're a team who along, now was it 15 years or so ago, they were one of the massive teams in Europe, and they want to get back to that level. This is a chance. Getting into a semi-final would be huge for them. But both teams know that if they're going into a semi-final, it's very likely that they're going to be the underdogs going into their semi-final. And then the final matchup then is Toulouse versus Exeter. So this is the two losing semi-finalists from last year. So another massive game. Toulouse, 5-time champions. Exeter, a really dogged team. They've been champions previously as well. So they have that now. They rebuilt their squad, and going into that game, it's one of these ones where they've nothing to lose, and I felt like that last year as well. That and it got them a long way as well. People wrote them off before games, but they kept producing until they got to that semi-final against La Rochelle, and that was a step too far. But let's see how they do against Toulouse. It's a massive, massive game for them. It's going to be very, very difficult. But you can't say that there's zero chance of them winning at the same time. Obviously, Toulouse, massive favourites. So that is the Champions Cup. We also had Challenge Cup stuff at the weekend. I'm just going to go through, I'm just going to say the results because we don't have time to go through each of the games. So round of 16 results. Friday, Gloucester 30, Castres 25. So Gloucester doing decent there to get through. Next then onto the Saturday games. Clermont 27, Cheetahs 22. So Cheetahs, for a team that aren't in any of the competing leagues, just to get to this stage is excellent for them. Clermont, obviously a team that had that period where they were competitive in the Champions Cup, and that's really where they want to get again, but it's a building process. Then Benetton 27, Lions 17. So Benetton have been really impressive this year in the URC, and I really would love to see them go deep in this competition as well. Ospreys 23, Sale 15. Great win for Ospreys. It's great to see a Welsh team actually producing in Europe, and we want to see more of that. From the point of view of somebody who covers a lot of URC games, I don't enjoy the fact that the Welsh teams are generally towards the bottom of the pile and they don't produce in Europe. I want to see them do better. I'm not one of these fans who's like, oh, well, I'm only cheering for the Irish provinces, and I actually hope that the others don't do well, because then that takes away from any achievements that the Irish. No, for me, I'm a rugby fan, I'm a URC fan, I'm an Irish fan, and like a Leinster fan, right? And all of those I want to see doing well, and so I'm really happy for Ospreys there. Equally for Edinburgh, 33-15 they won against Bayonne, so excellent for them. And I hope that they do continue on from there. We then have Montpellier 17, Ulster 40. Game kind of turned really on a red card, I think, there, and then Ulster with an amazing comeback in the second half. Ulster, at the very early stages now of rebuild. So I think any kind of progress for them at the moment is just a bonus. Then the Sharks 47, Zebre 3. So, Sharks were probably up the table a couple of rounds ago. Zebre have replaced them down there now, and Sharks starting to come into a bit of form. So maybe they could be a real surprise package in this competition. Then Pau 30, Connacht 40. Looked like Connacht had thrown this game away, and then come up with an amazing end to the game as well to get that win. So, the quarterfinals then, if we look at the matchups, you got Gloucester versus Ospreys, you got Clermont versus Ulster, we have Sharks versus Edinburgh, and Benetton versus Connacht. So we have like 6 URC teams in the quarterfinals, which is, just shows, we saw the URC we've seen the URC has been hugely more competitive this season than it has been in many, many seasons. And that's having a knock-on effect as well in Europe, that, these teams that hadn't been performing previously in the URC are doing so, and that confidence is going, with them into Europe as well. And we're seeing performances there too. And it means that we're guaranteed at least 2 URC semi-finalists as well. There is a possibility of like an all URC semi-final. I don't think that's probably going to happen, but it is still a possibility. Just one English team and one French team left in there as well. So well done to the URC teams there. At the weekend then, as I said, I'm not going to have, because of work, I'm not going to be able to watch all of the games live. The ones that I can, though, I'm going to be covering, and then anything else then we will do in a wrap-up video as well. But, I can't wait. It's one of these ones where I just want the week to be done so we can watch more rugby.